Catus Maximus here, this time with a review of the Epicurean cutting board, but I have a couple here. I have one that I've had for a few years and a new one that I just got. Epicurean boards are pretty nice. They are made in the United States, actually out of Superior, Wisconsin, and they're really US made because they're using a fiberboard material called richlite, which is made in Tacoma, Washington. And I'll explain more about that in a minute. These aren't the most expensive or certainly the best. I'm certainly aware of various Japanese cutting boards, etc. But for their price, like this big 14.5 inch by 11.25 inch is only $40. And what this material essentially is like the ultimate duty cardboard, except for they impregnate it as they're rolling it. They put in a special type of epoxy. And then like on these Epicureans, if we can just see here, it is actually multiple laminated layers, 5 layers in this case for a 1/4 inch thick cutting board. These do come pretty straight. If we can just take a quick look right down the edge, maybe a little bit. There has been some reports of warping, and Epicurean does talk about that. The surface, it is impermeable. Stuff doesn't soak into it, but and I don't quite understand it, but if you have it wet and then you set it on a flat surface and let it sit for days, it can cause a little bit of expansion. You just compensate by wetting the opposite side and letting it sit down. This particular unit I really like just because it's a slate version, which is just a long, flat cutting board without any divots or grooves, finger holes, and I also like the nice square shape. Part of this review is also the fact that these are really great for art boards. The Epicureans I do like for that purpose. I do like art mats, but something like this is flat but rigid, so you can use it on your lap or in all sorts of situations, sitting on the edge of the couch, so it could be much more convenient for doing things like X-Acto work. It also seems to be pretty friendly to other operations, such as this roller paper cutter. It seems to do really nicely on these Epicurean boards. So this shape actually doesn't show up on Epicurean's site, and I had some weird, this logo was different than the Epicurean that I have known and owned for a while now. And that would be this. Well, it turns out that this is a Williams-Sonoma, and actually I didn't grow up in an area where there was a Williams-Sonoma store. And don't do a lot of houseware shopping, so they're kind of like a Bed Bath & Beyond. And this is a special Epicurean that's only sold through their website. It was really hard for me to figure out where this unit came from. I've since learned Williams-Sonoma has like 20,000 employees, is out of San Francisco, so what can I say about that? It's being resold by an American company, and it's using an American supplier and then being basically cut the size at the Epicurean factory in Wisconsin. They do offer a limited lifetime warranty, of course, knife-friendly, non-porous, heat-resistant to 350 degrees, and they do advertise as being dishwasher safe. Another thing I was going to point out is that these, I'm forgetting what I'm saying here, will bleach a little bit. They don't have a ultraviolet protectant. Many kitchens will have fluorescent lights, and those put off a lot of UV. So we can see, compared to this new one, they will start to lighten up over the years. I haven't had an issue with this one warping, but I've always maybe just a touch, but I've always stored this cutting board on the edge. Just remember to store it on the edge, and I have never had to worry about it. I just wanted something a little bit larger size. I really am not fond of the finger hole, although many people do like it. And even though it's, a little more artsy, I guess you would say, to have the curved edges, I really like this slate tablet style. Not to be confused with actual slate. And a little more about the richlite. This is a wood pulp, recycled wood pulp paper product. That's why it's eco-friendly. And when they re-roll it, they actually inject a certain type of an epoxy resin, a glue, to make it just like essentially construction paper, but just like the ultimate heavy-duty construction paper. Just super thick layers. I don't know if the plain black one is laminated the same way, but I assume it would be. What we don't know is if they're using a special grade of glue for just the material that Epicurean is using, or if it's true with all richlite products. What I can tell you is that for 40 bucks for this 14 by 8, or excuse me, 14 by 11 sheet is a pretty good deal. Because looking up online, a 4 foot by 8 foot sheet, a 1/4 inch richlite 1000 series can set you back $500 for that sheet. And they actually make this stuff up to 2 inches thick. And a 4 by 8 foot sheet of 2-inch thick richlite will set you back $4,000 to $5,000. I don't think you're going to be cladding your house in that. So the material is the real deal, and it definitely has a price to back it up. So I actually think for what Epicurean is doing is shaping them. Epicurean may be getting these thin sheets and then laminating them themselves. I do not know about that. Their photos and discussion about the factory just shows the CNC routers. But for given just the cost of material, they're probably getting a better price. Of course, I think they're actually offering a pretty good value, and it has some good distinct advantages. Like if you ever drop it or ding it up, this can be worked on just like wood. You can sand it if you get deep gouges. You can bevel the corner if you chip up the corner. And I'll do a little bit of demonstration. I'm not going to blemish my brand new board for the YouTube video, but I'll do a little bit of cutting demonstrations here. I did want to say, yep, that's where I got it from, that you can also, from the Williams-Sonoma, get this deep embossing, and I do not recommend that at all. That's a really deep pocket there, and a lot of crud's going to get built up in there. It's going to be hard to clean out. So the basic laser etching, but not the actual deep embossing. Anyway, part of the relevance of this review is to actually show just what one of these. I'm not a heavy cook, or I don't know really anything about cooking. I eat old shop rags and tires for dinner. But as you use it, one of the things is it doesn't wear or raise a real big burr. That's one of the nice durability factors. And then if it gets really chewed up, you can just take a sander to it, or even a piece of sandpaper, and smooth it right out. I mean, if you chop and do that kind of stuff, there will be some gouges, but nothing that is too serious. And another aspect to note of these types of gouges is it tends to want to not really chip off, but it kind of wants to break and tear off rather than just remaining a fold, such as on plastic cutting boards where you'll get those gouges. It'll be a fold of plastic, bacteria can get into that fold, and then it kind of goes back over, and you can't get under there cleaning it in any fashion. So that's one of the ways it makes these just a little bit more sanitary. But just doing lots of heavy chopping and cutting really seems to have held up pretty well. And sorry for the camera work. I should probably get the other cutting board. Too much reflection from the stainless steel table, but I figured that was appropriate. But these things just work great. It's really not too bad at all. We just do some normal cutting right along there. And maybe even something, I know this is a piece of a cardboard or a paper towel roll, but I figured it's something that demonstrates some pretty tough cutting. I probably should sharpen this knife, but even if you're doing heavy cutting on these, where you really want to get through it, that was kind of brutal to the little cutting board. But surprisingly enough, we definitely got a groove in there. But it's really just nothing to really worry about too much. And so I think the durability is great. That's about as hard as you want without starting to really worry about damaging the fine edge of knives. So anyway, this is something I would recommend, not just being American made, but the actual, some good information about the material that they're using. And for 40 bucks, I mean, if you're using a plastic one, that's not too much to ask for a cutting board that will last you years. And of course, if you're somebody who's more of an aficionado, there's a whole world of cutting boards out there. Anyway, I really appreciate everybody watching and who has subscribed and supported me. And if you haven't subscribed, please consider doing so. Until next time, Catus Maximus out.